Welcome to the webinar. Yes. Okay. So glad you guys are here. Welcome. You all are here. I see you, Lisa. Hi, E. Hi, Dawn. Say hello in the chat room below. If you don't see a chat room below, hit refresh. You can also click on the link at the very top where it says webinar chat. And it'll open in a new tab. So if you are using a mobile device, you might want to do that. You might be watching on YouTube. If so, hello. Hi, Angela. Hi, Karen. If you're watching on YouTube, you need to go to the link in your email to get access to the webinar page, which also has the tracking sheet I use, and it has a link to a video where I talk about my accounting software. And if you didn't get a link in an email, it's because you didn't register. So you need to go to tarswagger.com/pay. You get access to all that. You can chat and answer your questions. I'm not paying attention to YouTube live chat during this. I'm just looking at the chat on this page. So hi, Shauna and Agnes. Anonymous, it looks like you're logged in. Yeah. You can also do that. You can log in. I can't see it because I'm already logged in to the chat. But by the way, that's just the chat login. That's not like if you're a Starship member or a student. That's not the chat room for that. I have a hair in my mouth. Okay. So I got several questions emailed and sent in on Instagram and then you guys who are watching live can ask in the chat. I'm going to refresh my email, make sure no more questions came in since we started. Yes. Okay, so Kareth has a question. My website says 1 p.m. GST. It shouldn't. It should say EST. Okay, so I'm going to reply to her real quick. And then we'll get started. It might have been in an email. Yeah, okay. So, hi guys, welcome. Here is what I thought we would talk about today. We're going to talk about how do you actually pay yourself? Like, what are the steps involved to get your business to the point where it can pay you money? I think that's why you guys are all here. Also, my new class, Pay Yourself, is opening today. And after we talk about how to pay yourself and then I answer your questions, it will be open for you to join. And for those of you who join from this webinar in the next 24 hours, you will get a special bonus. So I'll tell you about the bonus and I'll tell you how to join the class in just a little minute. Okay, just checking all of the places you guys have sent questions. They're all in one place. If you have a question and you're watching on the page of my website, you can put your question in the chat room and I'll answer it. But to get started, let's talk about it changes each time. Okay, I'm going to copy and paste that question, Dawn. So if you paste your question in the chat room, I'm going to copy and paste it in my little document. Okay. Now, all right. Of course, my neighbor pulls up right next door. Luckily, my dogs aren't yelling at them yet. That's usually what they do. Also, do you guys see the cherry blossoms right here? There's a weeping cherry tree in my neighbor's yard. And yesterday they had somebody cut it back like drastically. So there were branches all over the ground. And I went over and I snagged some. I don't think they were using it. Okay, so when I edit this video, this will be where it actually starts. So welcome everybody to How to Pay Yourself webinar. We're going to talk about how you get to the point where you can pay yourself in your own handmade business. And I'm going to tell you about my updated class, Pay Yourself. It's open for the first time in 2 years. And those of you who join in the first 24 hours during this webinar are going to get a special bonus. So I'll tell you about that bonus. I'm Tara Swagger. I help makers and artists build sustainable businesses that they love and actually feel good about. And I do that through helping you become your own best business expert. So all of my classes and my podcasts and my books are about helping you figure out how to do the thing for yourself. So like as an example, in my class, Pay Yourself, I don't say you need to do X, Y, Z. I walk you through doing the numbers in your own business, because so much of the advice out there says you need to do it exactly the way that I did it. You need to build an Instagram following that's this big. You need to charge this much. You need to use this pricing formula. And when you have a handmade business, that just doesn't work, because every business is different, because every product is different, and every brand is different. Everything about having a handmade business is about your thing being really you, being a great reflection of your work and your aesthetic and your skills. And so you can't just take someone else's brand or pricing formula and apply it to your own work. So how do you get to the point where you can pay yourself? The first step is to know your numbers. And I was on a workshop with someone recently, and they were trying to figure out alternative income streams, like how else to make money, either doing something like a subscription club or subscription service, or like sending out a box or like a kit, or branching into a totally different market or a totally different product, or teaching instead of just selling products. And everything that was suggested, people are like, well, how should I know if I should do it? And the answer is, you have to know your numbers. And then invariably, people are always like, what numbers do you mean? So I'm going to tell you what numbers I mean. First of all, you need to be certain about what your cost of goods sold are. COGS, COGS is kind of what we call it, cost of goods sold, for every single one item that you sell. So if you have 50 different products, you still need to figure out your COGS for every single one of them. And then you need to know your profit margin, both as a number, and it might help to know it as a percentage. So if your price is $10 and your COGS are $5, then your percentage of margin is 50%. Not everybody's percentage is 50%, by the way. In the retail world, which some of you know because you wholesale, typically that's the margin. You mark up, you pay a wholesale price, and then you mark it up so that there's a 50% profit margin. In the comic book industry, it's around 55%, but you are using that margin of that one product to pay for all of your overhead. So that's the next number you need to know, is all of the overhead in your business. Everything, everything, everything. So in between COGS and overhead, you should have accounted for every single expense your business has. And then you need to know your average sales in a month. And also, it really helps to know the worth of one subscriber. So if you are focusing on getting more email subscribers, or say you're just starting your email list, it's really helpful to know if I let's back up. If I have 1,000 subscribers and I make $1,000 in sales that month, then the worth of one subscriber is $1. Now, did every subscriber buy something from you? Of course not. Every subscriber didn't even open your emails. But knowing that number lets you see, if you want to get to $10,000 in sales, you maybe want to get to 10,000 subscribers. Now, the truth of it is, the more subscribers you get, often the worth of one subscriber goes down, because you have a lot of people who are just like watching and reading your stuff and not really buying. But knowing that number and watching that number can help you make decisions in your business. Now, that number isn't actually something we talk about in the class Pay Yourself, but it is in the free tracking worksheet. And if you're watching this on my website and you scroll down, there's a big pink thing that says download your tracking worksheet here. Click on it. It'll open a Google Sheet, and that's my template for tracking. So I track my worth of one subscriber so that I can watch and see what happens. If I sell more, if I send more direct call to action emails, or if I send less direct and more like, here's some things that are going on my website kind of emails, I can see how that impacts the worth of one subscriber. If you launch something new, that's going to impact the worth of one subscriber. If your worth of one subscriber goes way down one month and you don't know why, you want to look at what you did, what you sent, all of that. So that's what I mean by the numbers in your business. Not only knowing what your things cost you and what you sell them for, but also what else impacts your sales. So as you could also measure the worth of one Instagram account. For some people, they have like 300,000 followers and they make zero sales from their Instagram. Maybe because that's like what they've set up and that's what they're doing. But knowing that number and knowing it for you is really important, because it helps you decide what are the next decisions you want to take. And this is all about paying yourself, because if you don't know what you need to spend on your business and how much you need to make for your business, you can't know at what point you're allowed to pay yourself. And by allowed, I just mean you have the money in your business to pay yourself. Now, one number I didn't talk about that I'm going to make sure I hit is how many products. And this is a step that so many people miss. And in Pay Yourself, I explain why this number is so important. But the gist of it is, if you don't, or I explain like how I came to use this number to be able to quit my day job. Because here's the thing. If you just know I need to make $500 to break even, but you haven't looked at what that means for your product sales, then you might keep making products that have too low of a profit margin to ever help you reach that number, or vice versa. Or you're trying to decide to make a big supply order, but that big supply order is going to let you make 50 of your products, but you'd actually need 70 of your products to break even. That's really important math to know. And I'm amazed at how many business owners I meet who have been doing it for 6 months or 6 years, and they don't know these numbers. And they're like, why is my business not paying me? Well, it can't pay you unless you know what you need to make and need to do and need to sell. Because it's the thing. So when I talk about breaking down your break-even point into products, those are products that sell. You usually have to make 20 to 50% more than that. And is that even possible? That's the thing about a handmade business, is you have to be physically capable of making the products in order to sell them. And then maybe if you just need to increase your sales and you're fine on your production, that's where marketing comes in. But if you don't know your numbers, you can't pay yourself. You can't know at what point you will pay yourself. And that's really the question. It's not a matter of if you can pay yourself. It's once you get to a certain sales that you are breaking even in your own business. So this is not a sales number I can give you or anyone can give you. This is a number for your own business. Once you're breaking even on all of your costs, then the rest of that money, you can choose what to do with it. You can make a big supply order. You can buy a new sewing machine or spinning wheel, or you can pay yourself and then you can choose to pay your bills. Now I'm going to go into the chat room and see if there are any questions. Thank you, Jolie. I think you're answering people's questions. I super appreciate it. Yes, Leanne said the email had a date discrepancy. You're right. It said April 4th on Thursday, and Thursday is obviously April 6th. Actually, no one sent me an email with that question. So I was like, maybe noticed but me. Okay. I'm scrolling back up to see your guys' questions. If you're watching live and you're on the page of my site, the chat room will be right below this video. Put in any questions you have about anything I've said. And by the way, this webinar is coming at the end of a whole series of podcasts I've done about accounting terms and accounting software, how to stay on top of your taxes, and talking about profitability. So lots of you have emailed me questions. The podcast series has been going on, and I wanted to give us a chance to answer all those questions. So when I just reply a question to you, it only helps you. But if we can do it here, then it helps way more people who are listening. Somebody said, this is my first time in a chat room since I was 12 on AOL. I love that. Okay, so Dawn's question is a really good one. And Dawn, I know you're actually taking Pay Yourself this next time, so we can talk about this further in the Starship. But she says, my question is, how do I count for shipping in my cost of goods sold since it changes every time? I wouldn't count shipping in your cost of goods sold. I would count it as a kind of overhead. So that's what I do in my business. Unless, okay, I actually said that's what I do in my business, and then I realized that's not what I do, because my products, I ship them flat rate, and so I know the flat rate. So it's going to be $6 domestic, or it gets fuzzy with international, but $12 to $15 international. So I count that in my cost of goods sold. Now, when I sold yarn and I was sending all different size packages to all different places, I still used flat rate. So that really helped me have a regular expense. But what I would do is actually look at what your average shipping is for a month where you have X amount of sales, and then use that as a kind of overhead. Also, shipping is going to kind of come in your cash flow. So just because you've made $500 and that was your break-even point, if you didn't actually, say you made $500 worth of sales, But if you've spent the money, you don't actually have it on watch. Like, all of this comes back to, if your business doesn't have the money in it to pay you, it can't pay you. But when you're doing your numbers and pay yourself, you can use your average shipping as your overhead. And then when you do the math to scale up, like say I sold twice as much, make sure you increase shipping twice as much. And every month it's going to be a little different. So you just want to keep an eye on your accounting for that month and update your numbers when you see that shipping has changed. But I just generally use averages. Now I'm going to scroll down and see the rest of your questions. Post a question if you have it. Hello, Melissa. Hello, Ooh Shiny Art Glass. Hello, Linda. Hi, Nicole from Norway. Hi from Wisconsin. Don, Jenna, Melissa. I'm so glad to see you guys. Lindsay. So there's some question about the Starship Q&A. The Starship Q&As are on Tuesdays. You're going to get an email about this. This is the Pay Yourself Q&A. And so if you guys are like, why does she keep saying Starship? The Starship's my online community that gets access to everything I do. So they get invited to these Q&As that I'm offering the general public, but then they also get invited or they get access to all of the new classes I create. So all the Starship members will automatically get access to Pay Yourself. So don't go buy it because you've already bought the Starship. For everyone else, do you have any questions about let me tell you about the class. Okay. So Melissa says, I make buttons, different sizes and prices. Should I set a timer and see how long it takes me to make X buttons? So this is a matter of time. In Pay Yourself, we talk about how to take time into account in your pricing and in your profitability. And yes, what I usually recommend, because a lot of people, and actually Baker was just asking me about this yesterday. She's like, it's really hard to figure out the amount of time that I use to make one loaf of bread because there's a lot of active time and then it's just baking. So I can't make more than a certain number because my oven's busy, but I also, I'm not working on baking that entire time. Well, that's the thing. Many of us have businesses like that, like dyeing yarn. It's a lot of work, like scanning and labeling and all that. But while it's actually dyeing, you can't be dyeing other things, but you also aren't interacting with it, right? It's just bubbling away. So what I recommend, and all of the math for this is in Pay Yourself and the Pricing 101, which comes as part of Pay Yourself. But what I recommend is instead looking at what's the average of these items I can do in a day or a work session or an hour to really get clear about what you could truly produce in a day, a week, a month. Now, Jenna asked another question. I'm going to take a sip of my tea. Jenna says, so in another video, you mentioned the savings account you keep for separating your sales tax. Does that account have to have a minimum balance? No, it's just my credit union. I don't think they have minimum balances. Oh, that might be $5 or $10. But yeah, I don't know. I've never had that be a problem actually, because I just put money into it and I only remove money one time a quarter to pay those taxes. And it might have a minimum of $5 or $10. I mostly just use it like you'd use an envelope for cash. But if there's cash in this house, we would buy a pizza. So I put it, in that savings account. I'm not like trying to earn a lot of interest on it. I'm sure there are more financially sound options. And as I make more money, I'm going to look for those even better financial options. But for now, it just goes in a savings account attached to that business bank account. And I remove it when I pay my taxes. So Anonymous says, what about pricing in comparison to other products that are virtually the same as yours? If my calculations say I need to price a cross-stitch pattern at $10, but on Etsy, comparable patterns are priced at $3 to $5, mine won't sell unless they think I'm offering some unique feature. Ding, ding, ding. This comes down to branding. And also volume. So keep in mind that on Etsy, there are lots of people who aren't building a business and they aren't making any pricing decisions other than just how they feel. You are building a business, so you need to go with the prices that allow you to build that business sustainably. That means you have to build a brand that shows the value of your product. So there you have really great description or instructions in your pattern, or you have like beautiful samples made in different colors of your pattern, but you do have to go on above and beyond what the hobbyist is doing who's selling it for $3 or $5. Now, the thing about selling patterns, if they're not kits, is that your pattern could really be any price, right? Because if it's a PDF that people just buy and print, and your issue for breaking even is volume. And I have special sections in Pay Yourself for knitwear designers or pattern sellers, rather. This applies to cross stitch patterns, sewing patterns, anybody. It even really applies to like the books that I've made and sell, right? Like if you buy an ebook, I don't have to do anything else, but I have to hit a certain volume or that hasn't broken even. We talk about how to actually do that math. So so Dawn asked a follow-up question for her shipping question. Shipping the yarn to you, I count that in the cost of goods sold. So say you spent, so I know Dawn sells yarn, so I'm gonna use yarn as an example. Say you spent, I'm just gonna use made up numbers, $100 to get 100 skeins of yarn, but that you made $10 in shipping. When you're figuring out what did I spend for one skein of yarn, don't do 100 divided by 100, do 110, the price plus the shipping, divided by 100. So instead of it costing you $1 for each skein of yarn, it actually costs you $1.10 because of shipping. No, Melissa. So Melissa, your follow-up question was, do I set a timer to figure out how many buttons I can make in 1 hour? And then the next question I see from you is then pick a number to pay yourself? No. Here's the thing. Each of your items has to have a profit margin that is enough to cover your break-even point of your business, and then pay yourself. You don't get to just pick a number to pay yourself out of thin air or because of how long you've worked or how hard you've worked. You only get to pay yourself once you've covered your break-even point, after you've earned enough to pay back everything you've spent in your business. And some businesses have a super low break-even point. Then pay yourself. Lesson 3 and 4 of the class, Pay Yourself, walk through how to set an earnings goal above and beyond breaking even, and then figure out a plan to get there. So let's get into Pay Yourself. So Pay Yourself is my class that I actually launched for the first time in 2012, but I closed it in 2015 because I wanted to reshoot the videos, use a new software that would deliver it in an even better way to you guys. And let me tell you, technology has advanced a lot since the first time I offered the class in 2012, and my video setup has advanced a lot. Thank goodness for these nice, big, pretty windows. But what Pay Yourself is a 6-week course. There are 6 individual lessons, and each lesson has several different segments or a couple videos and worksheets that teach you first how to figure out that you're profitable, how many businesses are being unprofitable, because once you identify that, you can start to work on it. What you do at the very beginning of Pay Yourself is actually first gather up the numbers you need, because we don't all have these handy because we haven't all been using accounting software, and then set an intention for what you want to learn out of this class and what you want to get out of it. And that helps you really get focused on completing the class and getting what you need out of it. Then we get into doing your numbers, figuring out your micro numbers, your profit margin per product for every single product, and then your break-even point in your business of what number you need to earn. We talk about how to do all of that. All of this math that I'm just like running through verbally, there are actually worksheets and even spreadsheets that will help you do this math. If you're comfortable with spreadsheets, I've made some with some, what's the word? Where it totals up the stuff for you, formulas. And that was actually a request from students who took it last time, was if you had formulas, if you had spreadsheets and formulas, it would be a lot easier to put in. So for those of you who are into spreadsheets, there's spreadsheets. For those of you who are just into like doing it longhand, there are worksheets to do the math for all of your products, then for your total break-even point, and then how many of each of your products would you have to sell in order to break even. And then we talk about setting an earnings goal. The amount of money you want to pay yourself determines how many products you make and sell. above and beyond breaking even. I walk you all through that math. We also look at the math of what happens when you want to scale up and you've been breaking even because you made supply orders that were $400 and now you want to make $4,000 supply orders, how to do that math. And then in the last lessons, we look at all the places that you're profitable. Let's expand on that, right? So when you find the areas that aren't working for you, we talk about different ways of making them work better, but how your business is going to grow and how you're actually going to get to that point where you pay yourself is by doing more of what's working. So I hope you identify what you love doing, what brings you energy, what your customers love you doing, and then walk you through a lot of exercises to get more and more ideas to expand on what's already working well. And then also I share my process for making a decision. Is something going to be worth it or not? The first time I offered Pay Yourself, and whenever I've taught it live, people always are like, okay, but I'm thinking about doing this and that, and I've never done that before. How do I know if I should? This is the answer to that question. I give you a worksheet. I talk through my process of how I do it and help you decide if things are going to be profitable or not. And a lot of my students have used this to decide to do a big craft show across the country, or to take a new teaching opportunity, or to do a retreat, like things that were big and totally outside of their realm of experience. They could figure out, is this the thing for me or is this not the thing for me, using the math that I share in that worksheet. So it's 6 weeks. It's all in a class site. So you can pretty much go at your own pace. We have the first couple lessons loaded, and in the next week, we'll get all the lessons loaded if you wanted to do it all at once. But it will also be delivered to you one lesson a week via email, because invariably people get to the math lesson and they stop working. So if I just let you lead yourself through it, you would stop there. So there's an email each week letting you know about the next lesson for you to be working on. And for those of you who joined before April 15th, we are going to do a Q&A like this just for students. So as you've gone through the class, you will invariably come up against things that you're like, I don't know about this. You can ask me in that Q&A. That's for everybody who's joined by April 15th. And that Q&A will be sometime around when most of you have reached lesson 3 or 4. So 3 to 4 weeks later, we'll do a Q&A like this only for students. To answer any questions that have come up. After April 15th, Pay Yourself will still be open, but people won't get access to me to ask these questions in a Q&A environment. So to join Pay Yourself, and I'm actually going to edit this page to say this, so this link will show up on this page, you can go to tarasweiger.com/profit. And just like 2 hours ago, we tested and it works. So if you want to join Pay Yourself, you go to tarasweiger.com/profit and sign up there. It has all of the details, but if you have any questions about that class, you can ask now. We're going to stay on here for another bit. No, I'm trying to save this for you guys. So I've just embedded this link under this video. If you hit refresh, or you can just go to tarasweiger.com/profit. Now I'm going to check the chat room for your questions. Shiny Art Glass says, I've been doing this for 2 years now and still haven't paid myself. Hashtag bleeding money. I don't have any particular products that have knocked it out of the park, so to speak. Any advice? This is an excellent question. Shiny Art Glass. I think if you're bleeding money, you have 2 problems. One is that you don't have a big enough profit margin on your products. And so I've worked with people who have really big audiences, but never, and make a lot of sales, but never seem to make any money. And we look at the profit margin, it's because they don't have a big enough profit margin on their products. The second thing might be that your break-even point is too high. You're actually spending too much money in your business, and that's why it's not breaking even. We talk about the reasons you might be bleeding money in the first lesson, and then the math should help you identify the specific areas. Now, the third thing might be you're just not selling enough products with a high enough profit margin. And if that's the case, it comes down to marketing. My book, Market Yourself, walks you through creating a marketing plan and sharing your work and talking about it effectively. But you'll also do the math and Pay Yourself that will help you identify how many products would you need to sell to not bleed money, for you to break even. And then can you really do that number? If not, I give you some ideas for how to fix that, because that's an issue with your pricing and not necessarily you not selling enough. And I'm amazed at how many makers think, well, if I'll just sell more, I'll be fine. But their structure, their numbers aren't set up that they'll ever be fine. So that's what Pay Yourself helps you figure out. Now, A Crochet says, or is it AC Crochet? Wondering if you know of accounting software Excel spreadsheets for Canadian peeps receiving money in different currencies selling patterns. I don't, but I open that question to all of you. I have a lot of UK and European people on this call. A lot of the Canadians I work with use the software that I mentioned. If you're on this page, scroll down. I have a video at the bottom of this page about accounting software that I use. I'm fairly sure both QuickBooks and the accounting software I use, GoDaddy, will translate your currencies, because I receive money in different currencies too, because people like sometimes just PayPal me a currency. Okay, Rachel Gibbs says, can you talk a bit about how it works for knitwear designers? How it works, your numbers. The gist of it is this: for knitwear designers, your cost of goods sold are very small, right? Once you design a pattern, you don't have a recurring cost with every one you sell, except for a little bit of fees. But you have basically a project break-even point. If you've hired test knitters, tech editors, layout designers, models, photographers, then that is your break-even point for that project. And what you do is you figure out, how many patterns do I need to sell at this profit margin in order to break even on that project? And those numbers are all on Pay Yourself. Those equations are all on Pay Yourself. Agnes says, can you tell us a bit more about the best-selling products and how some products won't make any money? Well, I'm not sure I understand the question. So this is what I'd say, Agnes. You are going to know your own best-selling products. You're going to look at your sales and see what's selling well, and then do the math for their profit margin. If they don't have a high enough profit margin, you raise the prices. Some products won't make any money. That's what you asked. If your profit margin isn't high enough, you have to do that math. You have to figure out the cost of goods sold for one item and then figure out your profit margin for that item. Because here's the thing: if I'm selling a mug for $10 and it takes me $9 to make it, right? I'm like, I don't know, whatever I'm doing with it. It's taking me $9 to make it. That $1 is actually going to get spent up in PayPal and Etsy fees and shipping and packaging. That's not enough. So I need to raise the price, or I need to lower my expenses. And we talk about doing that for everything. So Karen says, I'm in the process of pricing a new product. If I calculate a price per hour to pay myself, it gets really expensive. If I just look at the profit margin, though, I'm happy with the total price as well as my profit. Should I ignore the hourly wage for myself and just focus on the profit margin for now, which I guess is the same as my hourly wage? Here's the thing, Karen. No, your profit margin isn't the same as your hourly wage because you have overhead. So, and guys, if this is confusing, this is why I put it in a class, that I walk you through actually doing the math. When you buy Pay Yourself, you also get access to Pricing 101. And in Pricing 101, I share 3 formulas for figuring out your price, because everyone isn't going to work for every person. Because many people find if they pay themselves an hourly wage and they work that in their price, their product is just way too expensive. However, if they use a different formula that more heavily weighs your cost of goods sold than your time, that price makes a lot of sense for them. The real question for makers and time is this: how many products would you have to make to not only break even, but to pay yourself what you want to make, be making? If that number of products can't be created in the amount of time you have, then you will not be able to pay yourself what you want to pay yourself. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you include an hourly rate in your products or not. You have to reach a number of production and sales in order to pay yourself a certain amount. I hope that helps. Like I said, the math is in the class. Okay, who do you send sales taxes to? So your state. Sales tax, and I assume you're in the States, E, you need to go to, oh gosh, what's it called? Your Department of Revenue. So TN or Tennessee.gov/revenue is my revenue thing. In most states, you only pay sales taxes on sales made in that state that aren't exempt. So my e-courses are exempt from state sales tax because they're digital products. They're changing these laws, though, in a lot of states, so that might not be true for you. Most of my customers take possession of my product outside of the state of Tennessee, so my state sales tax are very, very small. Your state will have its own rules, and you can also call them, like they're just people in offices. My first couple of years of Blonde Chicken Boutique, I did not. After I moved to Tennessee, I didn't properly set up the right little something in Tennessee. I had to pay like a $10 license to get started, and I didn't do that. So then they sent me a bill for like way more money than my state sales tax would actually be. So I went into the office with my numbers, like the revenue office. It's like down the street, because each county and city has one too. And I talked to them. And it was like 2 years after that I was like, I need to create a class where like people get on top of their money, because that was really scary and like really horrifying that I didn't know how to do that. Pay Yourself does not teach you about state taxes because so many of you are in the European Union or the UK or in Canada. So we don't cover individual laws, because also I'm not an accountant. I heartily recommend you look at your state website, your federal website, and then you contact an accountant about any specific questions about your taxes. This is all about you making your business sustainable for you. And part of that is like contacting a professional or doing the research. I got to re-lip gloss, and then we'll go to the next question. Okay, so Angela says, it's Angela. Will you be updating Pay Yourself course? Wait, crap. I zoomed past yours. I hit the wrong button in it. Okay, Rachel Gibbs, Agnes, Karen, Ushaini, E, Angela. Will you be updating the Pay Yourself course? Okay. Yeah, Angela. I don't know if you heard me earlier. Pay Yourself is now open. You can join. There's a link below if you refresh this page. It's tarasweiger.com/profit. I have updated it. So it's updated. I edited it a little bit, and we went back and looked. It came out in 2012. I updated it a little bit in 2014, editing the videos, clarifying some of the language. I have edited everything. But here's the thing, the math always stays the same. So it has a lot of the same worksheets as it had previously, but the videos are all new, much better, professionally edited. And the worksheets, I've like answered so many. So here's the thing, I've been teaching this class, not just online, since 2012 to, so far, I think 300 people have taken the class online, but I've also taught it live around the country in a lot of settings with traditional artists and crafters like potters and glass blowers and photographers. And I get the same questions every time I teach it. So I have incorporated those questions into the class so that if you're going through it and you have that question, the answer's right there. Now, Angela, and everyone, if you bought Pay Yourself previously, then you got an email from us saying you get free access to the updated version. So that's the thing. If you've ever bought Pay Yourself, then you've got free access to the new version. Check your email. If you didn't get that email for some reason, email us and we'll double check that you bought it and we'll give you free access. If you buy it now and I update it in the future, you will absolutely get free access. So that Q&A I said we're going to do, we'll go into it for anyone who joins later. We'll have access to that. Anything new I add, you'll get for free. It will always go in this updated site. So it's not like you just have it for 6 weeks and then you don't have it anymore. You have access to the class site as long as I'm still, people say lifelong access to the class site. I hate to say lifelong access because you might live longer than me, or, like the internet might melt down or something. I don't know. But I fully intend for you to have long-term access to the site. So Jenna says, hi, Lindsay. Okay, so how do you handle COGS, cost of goods sold, for something like a pattern where you don't know how many copies you are going to sell? I think I just answered that a minute ago. But something like photography or editing has to be averaged out. Overall sales, no. Instead, you look at your break-even point and you've got your, most of you charge about the same for each pattern. Then you look at how many patterns you have to sell in order to break even, and then to pay yourself on top of that. And then marketing comes in. You actually sell those patterns by doing the work of sharing it with people. And that's marketing. So that's, it's interesting because I never wanted to talk about money. I wasn't comfortable with it. I did a bad job of it for many, many years after I first started my business. I had a lot of issues with money. I grew up super poor. We were on food stamps and welfare for many years. And when I was a kid, then I got married, I was broke. I had a French degree. My husband has a history degree. We were chronically underemployed. So I just had a lot of uncomfortableness talking about money, but I've always been curious about how people made it. I always had no problem asking other people how they were doing it. So when I wanted to build my own business and create the ability, the freedom to not have other people's opinions of me impact how much money I made, which is a real reason why I'm self-employed, because the outside world's view of my value as a worker is much lower than what I felt like it actually was. In part because I got a degree in French, in part because I have a really hard time showing up to work on time, and in part because I just am not a person that should work in an office and wear black slacks every day. So, over the years, I've worked on my money stuff. I figured out all of the things about just making it profitable, and I've worked really hard at removing the emotion from it while recognizing that whenever it's your own thing that you love with all of your heart and you are super passionate about it, there's always going to be emotion behind it. But working out the numbers can help take it out of like, you suck, you don't have any sales, or like, you are wonderful, you have tons of sales. When you actually know how the numbers work out, you can stop just thinking, I feel this, and actually see what the results are and what the results could be if you scale up either production or sales or both. And so I never want to talk about money, but what I realized when I was talking about marketing, which I love talking about because marketing is just communication, and I love communication and psychology and all of that. What I realized though is that I was helping people improve their marketing through my class, Craft Your Marketing, through my book, Market Yourself, through my workshops around the country. And yet people were selling more, but not making any money. And I was like, well, look, like, I don't want to just help you sell more. I want to help you actually create a sustainable business and an income for yourself if that's what your goals are. So I had to talk about money and I had to talk about profitability, because otherwise your marketing is useless if you don't have a high enough profit margin, and you're not ever going to be able to break even. So that's where this class comes from. And that's why we're talking about it today, because the issue of selling enough to break even, like Anonymous's question, comes back to marketing, but your price point has to be enough that when you sell more, you actually make more. And Pay Yourself is going to walk you through all that math. By the way, most knitwear designers find that the math is like spot on, and then they know how many they need to sell, and then they scale up their marketing, and then their business grows. We have several people, I don't know if they're here on the Q&A, but several people in the Starship who have used Pay Yourself to like basically drive their marketing activity, and they've seen their business increase tons. Product makers often find that there's a slight problem somewhere, and we'll talk about the different areas in the class where there could be the problem and how to fix it. And they fix it in a couple different ways, and then they make money from their business. So one student is using this. Her business has grown to the point where she's actually building a whole new building on her land that will be a studio. And she used these numbers to figure out, if I want to build the studio, how much is my sales going to have, how many products am I going to have to sell to reach this number? And then what does that mean for the supply orders I'll make and the employees I hire? And this math works for, I sell 2 products and I make $200. And it also works for, I sell 2 million products and I make $2 million. So back to your questions in the chat room. Yarn House says, I'm going to try GoDaddy bookkeeping for my yarn shop. Can you compare that to using Square Register as POS, but keeping track of profit and loss on GoDaddy? Is it easier for bookkeeping beginners to transfer the data from POS? Does it make sense? I hope. I'm sorry, Yarn House. I don't know anything about your POS, so I can't tell you how easy it will be to transfer your data. I will tell you this. For the comic book shop, we're using, oh, and for those of you who don't know, POS is point of sale. It's a thing that you put your products into, and then when you scan to check people out, it takes it out of your inventory, and obviously it tells you what money you've made. The POS system we're using, you actually, because the comic book industry is weird, you actually can, it's from the distributor, and there's only one distributor for comics. So we will both do our ordering from within the POS and our selling from within the POS. And my plan is to run a report every week or even every month, then just put those numbers in like big categories in GoDaddy. And then for on the go, receipts, Office Depot, whatever, things that don't go through the POS, put those in and then combine it all, send it to the accountant. I know for sure that our POS will generate an Excel, and then I can upload that Excel into GoDaddy. I don't know what your POS will give you, so I can't speak to that. When you're determining how much you need to break even, do you consider, Aradia, it cut off, it didn't say anything else. Oh, Aradia, it didn't say anything else. Okay, I don't know, what do you consider? I will tell you that in the class, I talk about everything that you put into your overhead, and that goes into your break even. So I'm going to scroll back up. So Anonymous said, I'm a potter. For the extra cost of utilities to run my business, would that go into my cost of goods sold, a percentage of our monthly bill? I'm trying to think of how to break it down per piece made. I would probably put that in my overhead, Miss Potter, and put that in your overhead. So you need to make it break even, because whether you sell a product or not, you still have that cost. And by the way, a lot of things go into your overhead. So for a potter, it might be your glaze. You can't really break up your glaze into a certain number of pots unless you know for sure you can. For a sewist, that would be your thread, maybe even your fabric. If you use a lot of fabric in one thing, that like a lot of different fabric, like an art quilt maker, Marcia, might, to just put your total fabric each month into your overhead. For a spinner or a dyer, it's going to be your dyes go into your overhead, because you can't really break it down into what goes into one skein. So a lot of your supplies that you actually put into a product, if you can't do the math to really divide it up into a product, you can put it in your overhead. And say, I also hear this question a lot, well, I only order dyes every 6 months. Well, divided by 6, and then you know how much you need per month. I'm glad you're into this Q&A, Lisa. Trying to figure out if I'm charging enough in order to sell wholesale. So good news, on the product sheet in Pay Yourself, there is both a line for wholesale and retail prices, and then you will do the math on your profit margin both for wholesale and retail, and then you will do your overall break-even math both for your wholesale profit and your retail profit, because you're going to have to sell more if you sell wholesale. And is that a reasonable number? That's what the class will help you figure out. I'm making bags and bag fabric that I don't use straight away. What is the best way to account for it apart from using it up? The best way to account for it is if you know that you buy a half a yard and you can get 4 bags out of it, then take the price for a half a yard divided by 4. That's your cost of goods sold. Jolie says that she uses QuickBooks and she's in the UK and it works fine for having income in multiple currencies. Yay. Okay, be aware that PayPal charges a lot for currency changes after they cross the border fee. I've experienced that too, Linda. Okay, actually, Lisa, no, the BizStats template, that's a good question. I'm trying to see what time you guys are asking these questions. If I'm like way behind, yeah, I'm about 10 minutes. Like you're asking the question and then I'm not seeing it for 10 minutes. Probably because I'm talking a lot. Yep, Aradia. Okay, so Shiny Glass Art says, sometimes I wish I had the money to pay someone to overhaul my pricing for me so I had a solid foundation for the future. Here's the thing. You don't need anybody to do this for you. I actually got an email last week that said, can I hire you to overhaul my pricing? And it was the same thing. No, it was, yeah. So someone asked me if they could have me basically make their business foundationally strong. And you can hire somebody to do that. I think it costs quite a bit. But you can also do it for yourself. Like you can do that math. It's not a lot of math. We do it in one lesson. And then, so for you, I would do pay yourself math first, find out where the problem is. Then if your prices are really off, you can go through the pricing 101 exercises and formulas so that you get a better idea of the different kinds of prices that you could set for yourself. Then do the math again. A lot of this is knowing the 4 or 5 equations you need to do, and then doing them all of the time. Anytime you want to add something new, anytime you're wondering, can I sell wholesale, doing them again, figuring out how to make it work, and then going out and creating an action plan from those numbers. So you don't need to hire somebody, like the person you hire is going to do exactly what I walk you through and pay yourself. So you could spend money on a person who will do that, or you can do it yourself. And if you guys are truly the bosses of your own business and you want to have a sustainable business and not a hobby, which is why I did that recent podcast episode, is it a business or is it a hobby? Because if it's a hobby, skip all of this. If you do not have a vision for making this sustainable and making you some money, and it doesn't have to replace your day job. If you love your day job, it doesn't have to become a huge income source. But if you truly want to make it a business, then you have to know these numbers. Every CEO knows their profit margin. Even if they have a CFO, a chief financial officer, they still know the numbers of their sales and their profit and their costs. That's just like being truly the owner and being in charge. So that's a little tough love for you. The DOR folks are really helpful most of the time. Department of Revenue. Yes, they want to give you a hand to make sure you're complying. They want to know that they are getting the money you need to get. So Lisa, we'll talk about the tracking sheet in a minute. That's a really good question. I'm going to put that. So I have questions that were sent in before. And so this one came in before we got started. I'm a new business, just started working on opening in September 2016. High five. I would love to get a more concrete idea of how to find my break-even point. So far, I'm having pretty good sales with startup costs and operating expenses. I'm not sure that I'll recoup my initial investment and start paying myself. How do I determine how much money to dedicate to growing my business? I sell hand-dyed yarns. So for instance, how do I know when I can invest in new base yarn or a nice reskeiner / other tools to improve my business? So Pay Yourself walks you through how to find your break-even point for each month, taking into account everything you have to do. If you've taken out like a loan for your startup costs, you put that in to each month to find your break-even point. Like your loan repayment is what I'm saying. You put in to find your break-even point. And then how do you determine how much money to dedicate to growing your business? That's entirely up to you. Now you can put a line item in your budget for marketing for growing your business. Like if you want to do Facebook ads, if you want to do Ravelry ads, or if you want to do software, like I use CoSchedule and ConvertKit and Teachable and all of those softwares are now in my break even. But if I was deciding to do them, I would make a budget line and see, does it actually work? As for investing in a new base yarn, what you do is you do the math. You figure out, how much will this thing cost me? Do I want to do it all in one month? If so, how many extra products do I need to sell in that month in order to be able to afford it? Or do I want to break it up and save for it? If so, how many things do I need to sell in order to reach that number? And then you put it in savings. The thing I think a lot of us forget is that you determine what envelopes things go in. You determine what buckets you put your money into when the money comes in. So this is the difference between budgeting and cash flow. So budgeting is what you intend to do with the money, what you need to do with the money first, and then what you would like to do with it, and then paying yourself. When you actually are running your business, just because you sell one skein of yarn and you decided 20% will go into savings and 10% will whatever, you first actually have to break even before that cash flow can go into anything else. And it doesn't matter how much, and this is something I say in the class, it doesn't matter how you've worked in your hourly wage into your pricing. If you don't sell enough to break even, you don't get paid anything. I can say that I've factored in $5 to pay myself into every skein of yarn, but if I don't ever sell enough to just pay my web hosting fees, I don't get that $5. Okay, so there's budgeting for your business, and then there's actual cash flow. As cash is coming in, you get to decide what bucket to put the money in. So in a lot of times, I think about this as filters. So like the first wave of money will go, it pays all the bills, right? And then the next level will go in my tax savings, and then the next level will go to pay us. And actually, I'm going to talk specifically about what I do, how I manage my different bank accounts, and then how I actually pay myself, like what is the process I go through to do that. That is going to be your bonus. So for anybody who signs up for Pay Yourself, buys Pay Yourself in the next 24 hours, and of course, all Starship captains, you are going to get a video where I walk through the process I go through each month and then each week to actually pay myself, because I think you guys know that my business is 100% of my family's income, and putting money into saving for taxes and putting money into saving for the comic book shop. So I'm going to talk through that process because that's a question I get a lot. But like I have to sit down and actually like write it out to figure out how to explain it to you. But yeah, it comes down to cash flow versus just budgeting. We'll talk more about that. Now, another person had asked me, I think on Instagram, is Pay Yourself for me? I'm a potter. Yes. I've written Pay Yourself to work for you no matter if you have a business that has high cost of goods sold, like a yarn dyer often does, or you guys hear the train? If you guys have a business where you have a low cost of goods sold but high break-even point, like a knitwear designer might, or if you're making anything handmade. Now, if you sell a product that you buy, like a comic book shop does, or even like a yarn shop does, Pay Yourself is really based on the idea that you get to set your own prices. So it's not like for someone who buys and resells things if you have a very set in stone profit margin. So the comic book shop, so you guys know, comics are sold for $4. The price is on the cover, $3.99, and you pay usually 45% of that. So you really can't change your profit margin unless you add new products. So Pay Yourself is for people who are figuring out their own prices, which would include you, Potter friend. Okay, so I'm about to launch my first ever artwork prints. I've worked on how much, by the way, you can put your question in the chat room. I will answer all questions, no matter how long it takes us. I'm about to launch my first ever artwork prints. I've worked out how much I need to charge in order to make back my cost of goods and my overhead, but I have had feedback that for my brand, I should charge more. How do I make the call? I vote, you charge more, and you see if your sales drop. In 90% of the cases where I've told somebody to raise their price, or Pay Yourself has told somebody to raise their price and they've raised their price, they've only ever made more money. Now, their sales might drop a little bit, but the extra from each sale more than makes up for it, and they're having to do less work. So if you are getting feedback that for your brand, you should charge more, then you should charge more. You might find you actually increase your sales. I would like you to raise your hand in the chat room if you have increased your sales or increased your price and then seen an increase in sales. That is what usually happens. People are so afraid they're going to upset customers, but A, customers don't notice. B, customers trust you more if your price is in alignment with your brand. Talk about that more and Pay Yourself. Also, in Pricing 101, the first lesson is all the math and the formulas, and the second lesson in Pricing 101 is value, how to communicate your new price, or how your price and your brand work together and how to communicate that. Radio says, if you work from home, there are specific laws, rules about including your living space and your overhead. Yep. Again, talk to your accountant or your like state people, your state, local, federal government. I actually talk about how to hire an accountant in that podcast episode, How to Stay on Top of Your Accounting. I talk about the process of hiring an accountant because we just hired our first one a couple months ago. After creating my account for Pay Yourself class, can I change my password? Absolutely. Is there a difference in making products? Oh, so wait, I want to make sure you understand me. Yes. After you register, you can change your password. If you don't know how, send us an email and we will point you towards the tutorial on how to change your password. By the way, we don't manage your password at all. That's all managed by the software we're using, Teachable. So, you know, I don't see your password or know it, but there will be a way you can change it. Nicole says, is there a difference in making products ahead and making customized products after the order is placed? Yes. I said yes, but I should stop. You should do the math. Does it cost you more or less to do a custom order? Does it cost you more in time? So one of the things I look at is if you can make 10 items a week, just making them, how many items a week can you make if you custom make them? So does it slow you down? So maybe you can only get out 5 custom pieces. Say you're at capacity, but you could really only do 5 a week. Then you would need to change your math around what you charge for that. True story about being undervalued. Way to get comfortable with numbers, money, so that you can help us. So Nitsi says, awesome, the pay yourself regarding how designers have used this. That caught my attention. Yep. Thank you, Jolie, for answering questions. So Jolie says, she's saying this to Sonit, who I do believe, yeah, you're a Starship captain. She said, I first took Pay Yourself when I was tech editing and selling knitting patterns, and it really helped me get to grips with not my pricing so much, but with my sales goals should be, and then from that, what my newsletter subscribers should be. So we're going to talk about that because we talk about worth of subscriber. Aradia says, for the break even, are you considering only a single product or a range of the same type of products? That math is in Pay Yourself. You need to figure out your break even for each individual product if they have different profit margins. And I tell you about that. Yay. You're welcome, Sam. Yes. I used to just, okay, so Jolie says, I used to just set random goals, like I want to hit X newsletter subscribers this month, but it never actually meant anything. I used to leave my taxes till literally the last day and honestly never had a clue about how much I made. My system was if I had money in my PayPal account, then I could spend it. That was my system too. And if I didn't, then I couldn't. No clue if I was profitable or not. It was not a fun way to run a business. Tara got me serious about tracking monthly numbers and knowing exactly what I needed to earn and how much I was spending. It's been a huge deal. Even though I use the software now that pulls all the numbers in automatically, I still check everything regularly so I know what's going on in my business. High five, Jolie. BT Dubs, several of you who are here have taken Pay Yourself. Feel free to share in the chat room what your experience has been. Any questions you had, anything, because I think it helps other people understand what it's about. So FTR, GoDaddy doesn't do Canadian taxes or currency conversion. Bummer. Good to know. Does the new revised Pay Yourself go into more detail for service-oriented businesses? Not more detail, no. I talk about how you would break this down if you were a service-based business. But just like a designer, you might have very low COGS, very low cost of goods sold, and a little higher break even if you're hiring people to help you in your business. And works out, right? So with this profit margin and this break even point, I mean, so all of this, I'll say it like this, all of this applies to my business. When I'm doing a new class, I can figure out the break even point for that project and figure out how many I need to sell in order to break even on that project. And let me tell you, this Pay Yourself project, a pretty high break-even point because we learned a whole new software, and both Jolie and Jess worked on editing videos, uploading this stuff, fixing this stuff. This software is totally new for us, and it was a learning curve. But I know the numbers, so I'm not worried about it. Okay, yes, on raising prices and still selling more. Me, the price of my first course has more than doubled since I started in Starship, and the sales have not gone down. I just got better at communicating the value of the course. Woo! Somebody said, I didn't think I needed this class, and now I know I do. Lol. Not sure if this is relevant. How do you figure out the cost of the inventory you have on hand? It's not covered in Pay Yourself because what we're looking at is your breaking even and making profit. However, the cost of inventory you have on hand should be the wholesale price you paid times how much you have, right? What did you spend on the inventory you have on hand? Okay, here's another one. Raise prices with project bags that I used to sell and just raised my pattern prices and have my first 3-figure launch, which is huge for me. Definitely due to the advice you gave in that email. Yay! I don't know what email it was, but I'm glad you raised your prices. After taking the Pay Yourself course, I have a feeling I will have to raise my prices, especially if I'm on a wholesale. So fun fact, people actually tell me the reason why they don't sign up for this course or come to this class when I teach it at a conference is because they're afraid of what they'll learn. What's hilarious is the number one. So at the end of the class, we sent a survey. It used to go out automatically. This is something we actually need to add in this time. That said, like, so tell us, what your questions were, what your intention was from the class. Did the class meet your intention? Because if not, I'm going to fix it. And then what was the biggest thing you learned? And like, would you recommend this class to other? And those last 2 questions, what is the biggest thing you learned and would you recommend this class to other? The number one answer is I was really afraid and freaked out. And now I know my numbers and I'm not afraid and freaked out. So it's funny because what holds people back from taking the class is because they're afraid of what they'll learn. But after you've learned it, it's not scary anymore. It's like, I was so afraid of talking to my state salespeople about sales tax because I was afraid they were going to be like, you've done everything wrong. We're shutting you down, taking away all your yarn. And then I got it done and I was like on cloud 9. Every time we do our taxes, even though increasingly I owe more and more, I'm on cloud 9. Okay, I owe that much money, but I know I owe that much money, instead of like it being in the back of my head, like, oh no, I don't know how much I owe. By the way, using GoDaddy it gives me a running total of what my quarterly sales taxes would be. It's been priceless. This is the first quarter, by the way, since we're having real talk and being honest, this is the first quarter where I have I knew what I needed to have in savings in order to pay my quarterly estimated sales tax. Never before was I right. But since I've been using GoDaddy and looking at it, I look at it about once every couple weeks to see. It says quarterly estimated taxes for quarter 1 right there on my dashboard. Then I check my savings account where I'm saving for it, and I make sure that the money stays in there. Because, things have come up like we had to get our tires replaced on one of the cars. So I took a little money out of that savings account in order to get the tires replaced, because safety above all. And then I checked a couple weeks later, totally forgot I did it. Checked a couple weeks later and realized, crap, I need to add more money to that. So before I paid myself that week, I added the more money to my savings. So then when the taxes are due, the money's there. I'm like really excited because this has never been true before. And I want you guys to feel this like good, okay, I can handle this. Like, I know what it is and I can handle it. I just realized I did not put the link to the class in I'm just doing that right now. Save changes. Okay, so if you're just watching on YouTube, the How to Join Pay Yourself just popped up below in the description. So that is all the questions that got sent in beforehand. I'm going to go through the questions you guys have asked in the last few minutes. Melissa says, after taking the Pay Yourself class, I have a feeling I have to raise my prices, especially if I went to wholesale. Just worried if there's a breaking point for how much someone will pay for a button. They're ceramic and beautiful, but still I am concerned. So that's probably a branding issue. Yep. Also, the thing is, if your business isn't sustainable with the prices that you have, then you just have to fix something. So it's either you raise your prices and you change your branding, or you change your products, or you change the cost you're spending, or you change your overhead. Like I have had, so one of the Pay Yourself stories from someone who took it when it first came out, because she's been in the starship for years. She did the numbers and she literally cried, realizing, and she posted in the starship forums that she realized that no wonder she wasn't making any money, because her expenses were way too high. So we worked on expenses, we worked on her pricing, she raised her prices, and she actually got into wholesale and got away from craft shows because she realized craft shows draining her costs, all that. Better to do it wholesale. A year later, she did Pay Yourself again, because by the way, this is available in the Starship Library, and Starship captains often do it around this time, January to April, every year. She did it again, and she realized, okay, that's working better, but now this other area isn't working. And for starters, when she was looking at her overhead, she was counting her whole life, because her business was her entire job. Both her and her husband worked in it. It paid their mortgage. It paid for their travel. It paid for their food. So she wasn't breaking even above that, but it was like paying her for her life. And then just recently, she decided after years of having a business that was, she got to the point where it was profitable in the sense that it was able to pay for her life. She realized, actually, this is really hard on me physically, and I want to do something different. So she used the pay yourself math to look at different products, and she started a whole new business. The same is true for Jess, the person who has been my VA since 2014. She became my VA in July after taking Pay Yourself that I think we did it February, March that year. And she realized she had a hand-dyed yarn company. She realized the thing that's stressing me out is what I want more than anything is to have time with my kids and know that when I work, I'm getting paid for the work I'm doing. There's no way to do that with selling a product. You don't know you're definitely getting paid unless I up all my marketing, and then it's going to take a while till I know I'm getting paid. She's like, so what I'm wondering is there some way to have a small business and know I'm getting paid for my time? And I said, yeah, you could do hourly work. And she was an English teacher and has, she's just extremely qualified to do writing and copywriting and editing. So I was like, you realize you could do that and have your own business. And that's how she started her VA business. And then she did Pay Herself again, and she doubled her prices. And since then, she's more than double when she first started out doing it. And her business has grown. She's booked up with the hours she wants to work, which is not full time because she homeschools her kids. And it's funny, the initial email about, she said, so could I talk to you as my business coach and not as my client? I was like, yeah. She's like, so according to Pay Yourself, I need to raise my prices. And I was like, okay, well, as your business coach, this is how you're going to tell your clients. And I am delighted. I love it when I'm working with someone and they raise their prices because they realize that's how they're going to have a sustainable business. When I knew I needed to add someone else to my team, in part because Jess's business has shifted to be even more of what she really wants to do and less of some of the stuff she was doing for my businesses and other businesses. So I knew I needed to hire a person to do those tasks that weren't in her wheelhouse anymore. And many business friends told me, you should hire somebody in Southeast Asia. You can get really great VAs. They speak English and they're $2 to $5 an hour. And no judgment if that's a way you decide to go, but I feel like I teach sustainable business practices for people who live in the first world. And it would just not be in alignment with what I'm teaching women about valuing their work if then I went and hired someone who could fairly charge a lower wage because she lived in the first world. So I'm happy to pay people more for them to have a sustainable business. And I just wanted to tell you guys that so that you knew this is the outcome I want for everybody. And if it means we all spend more on yarn and knitting patterns, and have a more sustainable businesses who can stick with it for longer and don't all collapse under the weight of too much work and not enough reward. That's what I want. Okay, back to your questions. Okay, somebody said hands up for sales registration staying the same and growing when I raise my prices. But yes, they started falling off when the shop where I was working really stopped supporting me as an instructor. That's the thing. It's a very useful case study in pricing marketing interplay. Yes. Mary said, I took Pay Yourself the last time it was available about 6 months after I started my business, and it was so helpful at that point. I haven't kept up with keeping track of all those numbers, which is why I need to go through it and do the math again now. Good job, Mary. Jolie says to Melissa, there probably is an upper limit to what people will pay for buttons. I agree, but it might be more than you think. Jenna says, yep, once I set up my biz with the state fed and paid my first sales taxes and my numbers met theirs, I was feeling pretty good. Joe says, we use beeswax and honey from our hives in making product. Oh, this is an interesting business model. So how do I calculate that into our cost? What initial cost of hives and materials used throughout the course of each year to maintain our beehives go into overhead? Yes. So if you have to buy new, I have a friend who's a beekeeper. So she has boxes and she has slots, right, that have the honeycomb. Screens, right? If you have to buy new screens each year, that goes into your overhead. If your business is supporting the honey empire, everything that you spend on the honey empire goes into your expenses. Although I will say that a farm and farm products, this is a different business model than what I made pay yourself for, and I'm certainly not the expert. But in that case, your honey empire, everything goes into your overhead. Jay texted me something random. Okay, I thought it was related to this. Any hints for being okay with wanting to make a pretty substantial salary? I feel like so many of the people who do what I do, knitwear design, have fairly modest income goals and fairly low expectations for what they can make. And well, I don't. And sometimes I feel really guilty that I've set and honestly want to go way to achieving much higher goals. I'm going to copy and paste this into the document because I'm going to talk more about this. Okay. Such a good question. Karith Wine Charm says, I have no idea if I said your name right. I'm sorry. Although I started my business 18 months ago, I completely changed what I was selling about a year ago. So my losses on that old product and supplies were super high. I know my new numbers are much better, but doing my taxes was painful. I feel ya. Aradia throws confetti because she enrolled. Welcome. I turned off all the notifications on my phone, so I'm not seeing who's enrolling. Thanks for being here, Nicole. Okay. So we are going to do two topics. We're going to talk about the tracking worksheet, which you can download below. It's the big link that says download your free tracking worksheet. I know it's not clear that's a link because it's pink, but if you click on it, it'll open the PDF. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you have to go to tarasweiger.com/pay and sign up to get access to that. Okay. So we are going to first talk about being okay with wanting to make a substantial salary. I feel you. What I'm doing is I'm trying to think if I already have a podcast episode about this, so that because this is like such a deep thing. I go into this a little bit in the first lesson in Pay Yourself, because it might even be in the welcome. Because here's the thing that I know for sure, after 7 years of helping people with their businesses, if you don't get paid fairly and get paid what you want to make in your business, you will quit it. I've seen so many people fold their businesses because they didn't figure out the profit, or they didn't see the reward that they wanted, and they couldn't stick with it. So even though, I mean, these are people who said to me, well, I'm just doing it because I love it. I don't really care about making a profit, or I'm just doing it like I would do it for free. Great. But at some point, things will come up in your life that do require your time and attention, and you won't have to give it to this thing that you're doing for free. And so getting paid an amount that you want to make is actually really important in the longevity of your business. Now, you do not have to want to make $10,000 a month, or you can want to make $10,000 a month. The number and its bigness doesn't really matter. What matters is that you recognize what that number is for you and you work towards it. So for me, everything that I do with a podcast and free webinars and one-on-ones and the Starship chats, like I know I wouldn't be satisfied if I still had to work another job to pay my bills and was doing all of that. So almost like the more you reach your goals of where you feel good, the more good stuff you can put into the world, right? When you're a super successful knitwear designer, making exactly what you want to make and maybe even more, you will be more generous with other knitwear designers who ask you questions. You will be able to create free patterns for people who want it, or to collaborate with somebody smaller and like send some of your audience to them. When you are not seeing movement towards where you want to be, I don't think it comes actually once you reach your goal, but all along, knowing that you're working towards the number you actually want to make and knowing that you know your numbers is crucial to feeling good about your business. And when you feel bad about your business, you lose momentum, you don't work on it, you don't tell other people about it, you're crabby to other people who are customers who are asking for pattern support, right? Because you, and I see this so much with knitwear designers. One of my least favorite things is when designers say, oh, you just can't make money doing this because customers aren't willing to pay. When you put all of the weight on customers, right? Or like Button Girl, Melissa, if you said people aren't willing to pay enough for buttons to be sustainable, that that triggers something in your head where you're like, I kind of hate customers. And this is huge in the knitwear design world. People don't like or value their customers because they haven't taken their business seriously and done what they need to do in order to make their business sustainable so that they can love and serve their customers. So all of this is intertwined. Making what you want to make, reaching your outward mission to the world, whatever you want to bring to the world, love, joy, color, beautiful clothing, a sense of self, whatever. It's all tied together. If you can't see yourself actually making progress towards that goal where you feel like it's sustainable, you will get burnt out and quit offering all the other good, wonderful stuff to the world. So that can help. Recognizing that can help you get okay with making a salary. The other thing is to recognize that other people have other living situations. So this is not the like full of love way to think about it, but I'll just be totally honest with you. When I was growing my business and feeling like a lot of people, so what Anonymous said is a lot of people have fairly modest income goals and fairly low expectations for what they can make. I would remember those people have different lives than me. And the kind of snippy answer is like, maybe they don't need to make the money. Maybe they have a husband who makes all the money, or maybe they have a job that they love, or maybe they have, what's the word? An inheritance, right? Like we know that's not actually true for everybody. But thinking of it in that way made me realize like I have different goals and it's okay because I also have a different life, right? Like I grew up on food stamps. I was super broke when we got married for the first 5 years. I had a house broken into and everything was stolen. And that, by the way, happened the month after I quit my day job and started doing yarn full time. Before I quit my day job, we paid off my car, which is the first car we'd ever bought. We bought it used, but it was a VW Silverbug, my dream car. The month after I quit my day job, we got broken into. The next month, that car, which we had paid off, literally caught fire when Jay was in it. The back end of it, since the brake line, and it caught fire. And then we couldn't drive it anymore. So like, I was in a situation where I needed to make money. I needed to make my business sustainable. And so I decided not to feel bad about needing to provide because I knew how unfun it is to not be provided for. Unfun is like the weirdest way of saying it. It's horrible. It's absolutely no fun to not have the money to fix your brakes in your car and to constantly be afraid your brakes are going to go out. It's no fun to use food stamps at the grocery store. It's like, and when I frame it like that, making an income from the hard work that I'm doing and the value that I'm putting in the world is a lot easier to stomach. Now, for many of you, most of you, based on what I know about you, you're not actually in that point. It's not like total poverty or successful business. You're actually somewhere in the middle. And to be honest, a lot of people who are in the middle who are fine, they don't really need the money. They like the money. They want to make the money. Those people, and it might be you, have a really hard time getting motivated to make more money because it's just not a need. So instead, if you want your business to grow, because like I said, it burns you out to not be, even if you don't need the money, it burns you out to not make what you need, or make what you need in order to feel valued. That's the real key. They have to find another motivation. And so like I help students a lot find, okay, what is motivating you? So for young moms, it's often being able to spend more time with their kids, or to be able to take their kids on bigger adventures, or to take some of the stress off their husbands. For older women, it's often to have a sense of freedom and independence and not worry about what's going to happen as you reach retirement age. So you need to find the motivation, and it doesn't always have to be poverty or not, but I do remind myself that, and that works for me because of my life situation. And also my age when I started the business. I was still really young and hadn't had much like of a professional career before I started my business. None. I mean, I graduated college in 2004 and I started Blanche & Boutique in 2006. So, those are some hints for starting to be okay for wanting to make a pretty substantial salary. The other thing is always focus on the value you are bringing to people. If you are making beautiful designs and you want more and more people to wear them and love them and feel good about them, that's what's driving you. Like, that's fine. The only reason why we have a hard time with, to quote you, being okay with wanting to make a pretty substantial salary is because we feel like there's something dirty or wrong about making money or about having money. And my favorite thing, Jay and I talk about this all the time, is this. Money doesn't change who you are. Money magnifies who you are. So you're not going to become a different person if your knitwear design business blows up and you make $1 jillion. You think about the designers you've watched get big over the course of the time you've been doing this. They're still who they were back then. If anything, they're even like more so who they were back then because they have more confidence that the more themselves they are, the better their business does. So no guilt about the goals you've set, and other people's goals have nothing to do with you. I guess that's the point of what I was saying about, being broke and being broke isn't fun, is like their goals really literally have nothing to do with you. Like the amount of money you make isn't good or bad based on the amount of money other people are interested in making at all. Because you're not like making a higher salary by screwing those other designers or by like, one of my favorite Gary Vee quotes is, I want to build the tallest building in town, but I want to do it by building the tallest building, not by knocking over the other tall buildings. So that's the thing about your income goals, is you want to earn money through selling your designs, not through knocking over other designers. So feel okay, no guilt. Now, if you're a jackass, I would tell you, stop with this goal. It's not helpful. So I'm going to go check your questions again. Well, E, thank you for joining us. So as a reminder, anybody who joins in the next 24 hours, so from here until 2 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, you will get, it will be 4 to 6 weeks from now, you get an email with a video explaining exactly how I do my own numbers. So how I figure out what I need to make, how I actually manage that money. Because again, remembering budgeting isn't the same as cash flow. Cash flow actually has to flow in before I can do things with that money. I'll also talk about my favorite home budgeting software that I completely changed my relationship with money. You'll get that video if you join in the next 24 hours. And if you've joined before April 15th, we will do another Q&A just for students where you can ask your questions of where you are right now. So instead of me saying, well, that's covered in the class, I'll actually walk you through anything. The effects when you're thinking you'll never get to your numbers sounds like, yeah. So You're in Love Katie says, I want to make money because my goal is to replace my husband's very high salary. We have kids. We're building a new house and studio. A lot of people will judge me, but for me, this is a bid for greater freedom rather than hoarding all the funds Scrooge-like. Freedom rather than money is actually my goal. Preach. I'm so glad you said that. That's the thing. So this is the thing. I think I may have done a podcast episode about this. I've definitely talked to Starship captains about it. What really helps, if you're feeling stuck about having a specific goal, you're feeling like kind of sketchy about it, the thing that really helps is to translate money into what? What does money mean for you? Maybe it means safety and security. Maybe it means freedom, so that you can be home with your kids or homeschool your kids or move to a different house. For me, it meant getting out of the really sad small apartment that was dark that we lived in. It means being able to provide, and this is crazy, but true, able to provide healthcare to my pets when they need it. Like back in the day when Bo had a rash, he just had to suck it up. And now I know when he has a weird skin thing. I can take him to the doctor and not spend every day wondering if he secretly got cancer and going to die. So it buys me just peace of mind. And then, breaks when you need it. It's like a really big thing. So I translate money into like not the stuff, because I'm not a very stuff-full person, but the experiences, right? The money into, is it going to be freedom? Is it going to be new brakes in the car? Actually, I was just talking to someone about her next goal because she'd reached her goal for where she's happy. We were talking about having a hard time spending money. And I said, look, like break it down into things. Because she says, whenever I make a list of the things that my family needs, I always make more money that month than in a different month. I was like, well, that's the thing, is you have to see where it's going to go. You don't just care about money for money's sake. You want to see what it's going to buy you guys. And she works with some missionaries, and she's like, yeah, like they need a laptop. I just buy them a laptop with this money. It's like, yep. And immediately her brain was like, here are 5 ways to pay for that laptop, which is awesome. And that's the thing, translating it out of money, if money isn't very motivating, translating it into the actual things it's going to do can help. And by the way, you don't have to grow. You don't have to make more money. You don't have to buy more stuff. You don't need to expand your business. What you need is for it to be sustainable so you can keep doing it. And that's what I want to help you guys do. So I don't see any more questions in the chat room. If you join Pay Yourself in the next 24 hours, you get the walkthrough of what I actually do, because I get that question all of the time. And of course, you get access to the 6 lessons. Each lesson has a video or 2 where I explain what we're going to talk about. There's also a written transcript. If you're not into videos, every video has a completely written transcript, so you can read along. It's also really helpful if later you're like, what did she say? You can go back and reference it. All of it can be downloaded to your computer. The site is mobile friendly, so you can watch the videos when you're sitting on the couch with the kids, have it up on your phone or your iPad. There are also then worksheets that walk you through everything we've discussed. You are going to apply it to your own business. If you've taken the class with me before, you know that all I care about is that you apply it to your own business. So thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you just have a fantastic day and a very profitable day. And I want to thank all of you who joined the class while we were sitting here talking. So I'm super happy to have you in class. We are, the welcome stuff is all there. Lesson 1 is going to be there soon. And soon all of the info, like in 1 week from now, all of the class will be available, but then we'll email it to you week by week and you can go at it at your own pace. So one of the things I improved with this round of Pay Yourself is the last time people said, I want to do it all. I want to sit down with it all and just work through it. So we are making it available so you can work through all of it at once. Other people say, I need you to remind me to work on it each week. So we've included the email reminders that will come out each week, and reminder that this is 6 lessons and each lesson has different videos and worksheets and transcripts to every video, so you don't have to watch me talk if you're not into that. Even though if you're here in hour 2 of this webinar, I guess you're kind of into that. So I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. I super appreciate you. And I will, so welcome to the class, everybody who just joined. We got 4 people in since we started. So thanks, guys. And as a reminder, you have a 24-hour period in which to join and get that bonus video where I explain exactly how I do my own paying myself, like literally bank accounts, when I do it, how I cover all my bills. And then if you join by the 15th, if you're anywhere in between now and the 15th, we will do a Q&A like this where I answer your specific questions once you've done the math, because that's really important. You need to do the math and then ask your question, and we'll do that about mid-May. So thanks so much for being here. Have a really fantastic day, and I will talk to you in the podcast next week. Bye, guys. Oh, if you have subscribed to my YouTube channel, there will be a new YouTube video every single day in April. That's at taraswagger.com/YouTube. So if you liked this, I'm going to do this every day. So I'll see you there. And I'll see you inside Pay Yourself. Bye.